In this video, let's talk about these three cameras: the GH5, the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera and the A7 III. And I will tell you why did I recommend this camera to my friend and why do I get such good results with this camera. First of all, this is by no means a ranking between these cameras from worst to best. I like to use all of these cameras. This is just a video about this camera and why I recommended this camera over the other ones. And my friend is a beginner filmmaker who shoots mostly handheld and spontaneous stuff, and takes some stills and sometimes shoots lectures for his online courses. So these are kind of like to whom I was recommending this to, and maybe this will help you to kind of understand which camera might be good for you as well. So first of all, let's start with the GH5. This is by far my favorite camera because I've been using this for such a long time. And it has amazing in-body stabilization, so it means that it's really good camera to use just handheld. So it's kind of like the smallest out of these three because you don't necessarily need to put it on a tripod or a gimbal. And I really like the codecs in this camera. They're really solid, and the color profiles, especially the log profile, is really professional. This shoots 10-bit internally, so the codec is really good and you can shoot really professional stuff with this. But the bad thing with this camera is that the sensor is relatively small, so it's not really good in low light. But you can combat that with the Metabone Speed Booster, this adapter that allows you to concentrate more light on your sensor and you get better low light performance. But then, on the other hand, you don't get autofocus. So it's kind of a trade-off, this camera. You either have good low light or then you have autofocus. So because of that, I'm kind of mentally metaphorically dropping it out of the table when I'm thinking about cameras to recommend. Then the next camera, this is the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera. This is my newest camera, but already I'm really liking the usability of this camera. The menu system and everything just works really well. And this has a newer technology sensor, so this is really good in low light. And the image quality in this camera is really good. And the fact that this shoots RAW makes this a really viable option. And out of these cameras, this Blackmagic Pocket Cinema camera is the most professional video camera, and that's a good thing and a bad thing. The good thing is that it's really easy to use when it comes to video making, but the bad thing is that you can't really take stills with this. Technically you can, but it's not a stills camera. And the reason why I dropped this metaphorically from the table as well is that this doesn't have a continuous autofocus. And the other reason is that it doesn't have any kind of sensor stabilization. So if you want to get smooth footage, you always need to attach this to like a tripod or a gimbal. So even though it's relatively small camera, it becomes actually the biggest camera out of these because you always need to have something attached to this when you're shooting video. Then let's talk about the A7 III. On paper, this camera is really good. It has a big sensor, like full frame sensor, so it means that it's really good in low light and you get a really nice background blur effect, the bokeh effect, and it has a really good autofocus. But that's just the paper. On a practical level, when I got this camera last year and I took some test footage with this and I took it to the computer, I was astonished on how bad the footage was, because I was using this camera before and this has really solid log profile and really good codecs. So when I started using the S log profile on this camera, I really was kind of surprised on how bad the shadows were. There was so much noise and so much color blocking and so much kind of nasty issues, even though I followed the official color correction guidelines from Sony and used the official lookup table to color correct footage from this. The other profiles in this camera, the so-called non-log profiles, they don't have the noise issue, but they have that kind of like a Sony look that you can easily spot on YouTube when you surf. That kind of like that the colors are kind of a bit off. They don't look that cinematic. And one other thing is that word of caution is that this camera is not weather sealed, so it means that the even small splash of seawater can break your camera, just that you know. But anyway, so after the initial hiccups that I had with this camera, I actually learned to like this camera. And since the initial problems, I have developed a whole method on how to shoot with this camera, how to kind of capture the footage, what kind of settings I use and how I color grade the footage. And with this method I have been able to kind of work around the limitations that this camera has when it comes to the features and like lack of features. And for example, I'm now able to get the same or even more dynamic range with the other profiles than I get with the S-Log profile. So it means that I really get a nice clean image with this and high dynamic range. So the reason why I kind of now recommend this to a friend of mine who might be similar to as you might be a similar kind of a filmmaker is the combination of the kind of the method for working around the limitations and the feature set that this camera has. So, but again, I want to emphasize that this is by no means a ranking between these cameras. I still think these cameras have their strong points compared to this. And if you want to learn more about this method on how I use this camera, you can go and check it out here. And actually, I'm interested on like what camera do you use and why do you use it? Do you use one of these cameras or do you use something else, some other brand or something? And why did you choose that camera? Can you tell me on the comments? So go and check out the method about this, comment in the below, why do you use your camera? I'm interested to hear, and subscribe to the channel and see you in the next video. Bye.